So good evening, everyone, and welcome to episode 6 of Down on the Korner, the flagship show of KINER'S I'm your host, Mark Rosenman. Tonight, I'm joined by KINER'S.com, AJ Carter, joining us tonight, as well as our KINER'S Corner special contributor, a member of the 1986 World Champion New York Mets, current manager of the Atlantic League Counterclocks, Barry Lyons, and his teammate on the 1986 World Championship New York Mets, the manager of the Long Island Ducks, one of our favorite guys, Wally Backman. So welcome, guys.
Welcome. How are you?
I'm doing good. Every time we can talk baseball, especially after a Met win, it's always good. So before we talk about the Mets win tonight in our Zoom room with our Zoom room audience, as well as get into what might be a really cool rivalry this season in the Atlantic League between the two of you guys, should you meet in the championship series, let's talk about a few other things. So first off, one of the things I want to talk about is opening day. This week, the Mets honored the late, great Bob Murphy, who was a New York Met broadcaster from 1962 to 2003. Our site, obviously, in some small way, is a tribute to Ralph Kiner, but we also love Murph and Lindsey Nelson as well. Bob was lucky enough to be around for both of the Mets World Series. Love to hear each of your favorite Bob Murphy stories. Wally, we'll start with you.
Hey, I got some good Murph stories. I mean, I remember when Murph tripped coming out of the bus in Chicago and fell and hit his head against the side of the building at the Westin Hotel in Chicago. And he got hurt, but Murph was such a special person. I mean, he was as good as it gets. I loved him to death.
What about you, Barry? Barry, you got on mute.
Sorry.
There you go.
I remember that Murph incident myself. He missed that last step coming off the bus and had an unfortunate accident in Chicago. But what a great man, great broadcaster. I guess my one shining moment with Murph was actually in the '86 World Series. I was injured and not in uniform, and I was bouncing around from the clubhouse to behind home plate to up in the press box, and I happened to be sitting in the radio booth with Murph when the paratrooper came down on the field, and I couldn't see him because of the overhang, and I saw Murph look up, and he got excited, and next thing you know, I'm trying to see what's going on, and all of a sudden there was the paratrooper. So that was a neat experience to have witnessed in the presence of Bob Murphy. But what an amazing broadcaster, what a passionate man for baseball, really good guy.
So, Wally, during your Met career, you played for the following managers: Joe Torre, George Bamberger, Frank Howard, Davey, then Tom Kelly with the Twins, Jimmy Leland with the Pirates, Nick Leyva, Jim Fregosi with the Phils, and you closed out your career with Lou Piniella with the Mariners. I can't even believe this. I looked at the numbers, and this season, at some point during the Duck season, you'll be managing your 2,500th game. You currently have a .517 winning percentage. Of all your managers, who's the one that influenced your managing style the most?
Well, Mark, I take bits and pieces from all of them. They were all great managers. I mean, Joe Torre was my first manager when I was 20 years old. I think of Davey giving me my first opportunity to play every day. I think of learning the game from Jimmy Leland, playing for Lou Piniella. Those would be my favorite ones of all. I learned a lot from all those guys, and I tried to take a piece from each and every one of them. The way that I manage the game today, everybody knows I manage aggressively and things like that. And I can't say that there was one was the best. They were all great. And I learned a lot from each one of those individuals.
It's a pretty neat roster of guys that you played under. Barry, with the Mets, obviously you played for Davey Johnson. You also got to play for Tommy Lasorda with the Dodgers. Buck Rogers with the Angels, both Gene Lamont and Terry Bevington for the White Sox. Who do you think the guy you channel the most in the dugout as a manager is, and why?
Well, Davy Johnson, he was a guy that gave me an opportunity and believed in me and was the roving hitting instructor the first year that I was drafted by the Mets. And he saw me early on, and I think he took a liking to me as far as the way I swung the bat and the aggressive hitter that I was. And unfortunately, I didn't get to play as much as I would have liked to have, being that I was backing up a Hall of Famer. So that was tough. But Davey was a player's manager. I mean, that term's maybe overused sometimes, but he trusted us to show up and get the job done and come and play the game the way we know how to play it, and didn't really interfere with us as far as what we did on the field. There wasn't the hands-on, one-on-one, over-training, over-teaching. You were expected to have learned the game, learned the craft through the minor league system, which the Mets had the best minor league system in all of baseball in the 1980s. And we won championships at every level. And there was a concerted effort to win at the minor league level, whereas a lot of organizations don't do that. And I don't know that was specifically Davies' call, Frank Cashin and the guys that he had running the minor league department. That was something that was, you want to train guys to be a big league player, but you also want to train them and develop them to be championship big league players. And the only ways you can do that is to play for championships and play meaningful games and in the minor leagues in September, and obviously in the major leagues in October.
I know we covered this, Barry, on our season preview show, and you hit the nail on the head when we were talking about Francisco Alvarez. You said things happen. You need to go down. You need to do your work in the minors, you're going to get called up and someone's going to get injured. You hit the nail right on the head. Armando Narvaez was injured even before the Mets arrived home for their home opener. Alvarez gets the call. The knock on the kid has been from day one, he strikes out too much. His defense still needs refining. We saw that in full display his first start yesterday. Marlins stole 5 bases against him, committed a throwing error, struck out 2 of his 4 at-bats. He's had 49 games of AAA experience. It's interesting because in 86, when you made the club out of spring training, you had 0 games of AAA experience. So I guess it's a two-pronged question here. As someone who's played that position, catcher in the majors, prior to playing any games of AAA, are we overblowing the importance of those games? And do you think your career might have been different had you played maybe half a season at the AAA level before getting to the majors?
Well, that's a great question. And it's hard to really look back and sort of answer that question in a way that would make sense to you. I mean, I did get called up to AAA for the championship series in '85, so I had a whopping 3 games of AAA experience when I made the big league club. But I was there for a month, didn't get much of an opportunity to play, and then went down to get some at bats and played. And so I did end up with a little more than a half a season at AAA before I got injured in August and missed out on all the postseason fun in New York. But it was good to get that AAA experience. But nowadays, jumping from AA to the big leagues, I don't think it's that big a deal. I believe that you want your best players, your top prospects at AA. You want them to play together as long as you can. AAA is a mixture of guys on the way up, guys on the way out, guys that have been stuck in what they call 4A for a while. And there's just so many different personalities and so many different agendas in play. That's a tough level, but AA is where your key prospects are. And I think the jump from AA to big league, while it is a big jump, I think given a chance, the guys that prove they're ready, it's not a problem for them.
So Wally, I think if things continue going the way they're going with third baseman Eduardo Escobar, Buck is going to have to make the call as when it's time to move on to Batty. Hopefully Escobar writes himself. No one works harder than that guy. So I'd love to see him turn it around. I know that when you were managing the Mets in the system, Terry Collins valued your input tremendously as to when a player was ready for the big leagues. And I remember, texting you about several guys, and your assessment of those guys were spot on. Obviously, the game's changed dramatically over the last few years. A lot of things are weighted to analytics. How much do you think that Buck and Billy will lean a guy who you work with during your time with the Vegas 51s? He's the manager of the Syracuse Mets, Dick Scott. He was the New York Mets Director of Player Development from 2013 to 2015. So what can you tell us about your time with Dick that might give fans confidence that he'll know when the right time to move these guys up is?
Well, I think it's part of the development. I don't know exactly when the right time is because I'm not there. I know what I used to say to Sandy Alderson when I thought it was right for certain players, but Beatty's is a big time prospect. The Mets are expected to win this year. How many rookies can you put into those situations to really compete for a World Series? I think he's one of them, and I love Escobar. I was at the game the other night and I was like, God, he needs a big hit here. He hit one ball deep to left center field that was caught, and then he hit the home run. So, I'm an Escobar fan. He's a veteran type of guy, but Beatty's time, it's coming. It's coming. And, they had to bring Alvarez up sooner than they probably wanted to. To go with a rookie catcher, a rookie third baseman, it's going to be tough. I think the Mets are still good enough to do it. And they're top prospects. And, I want to see those guys succeed. But I also feel that a guy like Escobar is a veteran guy that brings some intangibles to the game. I think they have the products that they need to have to be a very good organization down the road. Going back to Dickie Scott, I don't know how many years Dickie's managed. I managed under him as he was the farm director or whatever he was. I guess we'll just have to see. Certain people can make decisions better than others, and we'll see what Dickie decides.
Yeah, I miss your evaluations, which they were always spot on. A lot of them got me in trouble when I asked certain questions.
Myself.
But we wanted you to, right? So both of you kind of have to deal with similar situations such as that, as the Atlantic League attracts a lot of former major league players who are trying to make it back. Wally, you've got two guys, that Met fans know very well, Daniel Murphy and Ruben Tejada. Barry, I know the counterclocks are still filling out their roster, but obviously there's going to be some, veterans in there as well. When you see a player reach a certain age, what are the signs that, okay, he no longer has that bat speed, he's done? Are there, is it little subtle nuances that you guys will notice, or is it just a matter of age and just bat speed slowing down?
I think it's the athleticism that you're looking at. If a guy's athletic still, by the way, I just signed, I can't say his name very good, Echeverria.
Oh, okay.
So he's another shortstop with Tejada and Murphy. But, I think it's the athleticism. I think the way that you've seen Tejada play in the World Baseball Classics, and Echeverria is still an athlete. He's 34 years old. Daniel Murphy just turned 38 on April 1st. You want my opinion? I'll give it to you. Daniel Murphy is healthy, in great shape, and he would be by far the Mets' best DH right now. So, a lot of people might not want to hear that, but this guy's ready to play. He wants to make a comeback. He doesn't need the money. He wants to play. He's a player. He's a gamer. He's a team player. And I hope the best for Murph. I just don't think he'll be there very long. I just hope that certain teams that I'm in good contact with would take a chance, because it's a chance. He's a championship player. They, between him and Todd, they both played in the 15 World Series, and they're good players. And everybody's seen what Tejada did in the WBC. I'm fortunate to have him, and I don't believe I'll have him very long.
And Barry, anything you want to add to that? Is there over and above the athleticism? Is there anything you look at to tell when a player's done?
Well, the passion that he portrays or that he shows from day to day. I mean, there's some guys that are just sort of trying to ride it out and trying to milk another year. Those guys, you don't want them. It's the guys that still love the game and still exude the confidence and the general excitement about getting to play the game that we all love. And at some point, everyone has to take the uniform off and it ends. But we actually have a guy that pitched for the Mets a couple of years ago, Jared Eichhoff, who is projected to be one of our starters. He has several years of big league experience, and we have a few guys, none the names or caliber of player that Wally mentioned, that he's bankrolling up there in Long Island. But
it's starting already.
I know. I'm coming to get you, Barry.
I love it. You mentioned passion and the way they go about it, and that's a perfect lead-in. The 1986 Mets, obviously one of the most beloved team in franchise history. What made that group have that confidence and that passion as a group? You don't normally see that. I mean, from day one, just the fight in that team and the way, obviously they were infighting, we saw that during team picture day, but, if other teams started with you guys were all in. What was that created? Is that just something that naturally, organically happens because of a group of players, or was there a leader in there that developed that, camaraderie between all of you? You want to take that first? Well, again,
no, I'll start. I think that Barry hit it on the head. It was a winning atmosphere from the minor leagues to the big leagues. And I think that the minor league player, even myself and other players, I could speak for some of them too, when you got to the big leagues, you were expected to win. And it went to your heart. And we learned from a very young age in the minor leagues that going through the minor league system, that when you got to the big leagues, you were expected to win. You were expected to know how to win. And I think that's what, I give Frank Cashen a lot of credit, for those minor league teams, that they wanted to win. It's about development, but it was really about winning. So, and winning is part of development. I've said that forever, but I think that the things that was created at that time made all those players that came up, including Barry when he came up in 85 or 6, whenever it was. These guys came to the big leagues and they were winners when they came to the big leagues, and they were expected to win. They knew that when they got there.
That's so important, and just the will to win made guys want to fight for each other. We wanted to win so badly. I mean, I know I used part of my energy and part of my aggression was I would find something about the other club I didn't like about it, and made me want to kick their ass that day, and or the other pitcher or somebody on the team or the other manager. I mean, you got to find things that give you an edge, that excite you and sort of energize you above and beyond to call of just playing the game at the big league level. That's what so many players today, they want numbers, they want stats, they want to play showcase baseball, how hard you can throw it, how far you can hit it, but they don't necessarily understand the intricacies of the game. They don't understand the anticipation and the instincts that go with learning how to play the game at a young age, and developing those skills, as well as the physical, natural skills of throwing and running and hitting. You have to learn to win, and not everybody is going to win. Obviously, there's only one team that's standing at the end of the season, in whatever league you're in, whatever level of baseball you're playing. The goal is always to win a championship. And certainly that's always been something that I've been blessed to be a part of, from little league all the way through the major leagues. I've been a part of teams, and in a lot of those teams, I was one of the key players on a championship team. And as a manager, I'm so thrilled to get a chance to manage again. And it's been a while, but this is very exciting for me. And I'm going all in with our club. We're planning on being in the championship come September, and I hope it's playing against the Long Island Ducks. But unfortunately, this year we don't play each other in the regular season. But I'm in this for the long haul, not just for 1 year. So hopefully Wally and I will get to meet head to head out on Long Island at some point in the not too distant future.
Barry, can I interrupt you for a second, Barry?
Yes.
It's going to be okay to be second your first year. I love you, Barry.
Two things. First, what you just mentioned, Barry and Wally, about starting at the lower level, and I think this doesn't get said enough, but that 2015 Met team that lost to Kansas City, but Wally's fingerprints were all over that team.
Yes,
a lot of those guys passed through the Vegas 51s, and Wally was a big part of that. And I think that doesn't get said enough. Now, getting back to what you guys were just talking about, whoever made up the Atlantic League schedule just missed the boat entirely. The fact that the Counterclocks do not play the Ducks at all during the regular season is just crazy. But like you mentioned, if you guys do get there, it means you both had a successful season. But what will managing against each other seem like? I know, Wally, you've had it, a couple of guys over the years in the Atlantic League, former teammates, just this last year with the Ferry Hawks, fantasy camp guys, with Alfonso. But what will it mean like managing against a former teammate for both of you?
I think it would be great. I think Barry is his first year in this league, and I'm looking forward to him having a real successful season. And Barry and I talk, on the phone and things like that. I try to give him a little bit of direction. He's going to do his own thing. He's the manager, to make him the best manager he can be in that league. But I know Barry knows baseball, and I think that Barry's going to have a successful season. But it's his first season, so you got to kind of figure things out. You got to realize that, some people that you think are your friends are really not your friends, meaning other managers and coaches and things like that, because you got to pick and choose your own players, and there's a salary cap, and sometimes the players, for a couple $100 more, they'll go to another team, or a manager can do certain things. I would never do that with Barry. I've talked to him about it. But no, I mean, he's going to be successful. He's a baseball guy. He knows the game. It's going to be his first year, and I'd love to beat him in the championship.
Well, Mark, as well as I do, that Wally Backman is one of the best managers in all of baseball, no matter what level it is. And the guys play for him in a way that you don't find everywhere. And I think that was some of the Jim Leland that Wally picked up on, in the way that he led his guys, and guys wanted to bust their ass and win at all costs. But there were times when Wally and I would talk, or over the years, and certainly a friend and teammate, wish the best for him. And but it'll be fun. It's going to happen at some point down the road, but it would be great to meet up in a championship series this year. It is my first year managing in the Atlantic League. I was fortunate to hire 3 coaches that are well respected, and 2 of which have been very helpful in the player procurement. That's a tough part of this job, and have a guy that's got some experience at it and is willing to go all in and help us get the best players that we can get. He's done a fantastic job. So I'm very fortunate that I had some really good people recommended to me, and I interviewed them and was very impressed. And so it's an exciting time for me. I leave home here in Mississippi on Wednesday, headed to Lexington, and we start our training camp a week from today, actually on the 17th of April.
Yeah, gets underway really soon. We're looking forward to it. And, AJ and I go out and cover a lot of the Ducks games. And you're right. The guys do want to, there are certain managers that guys will go through a brick wall for. And Wally's certainly one of them, even if it's even at the fantasy camp level, for sure. I know the guys in the Zoom room, as well as AJ, are chomping at the bits to get some questions in. So, AJ, I'm going to turn it over to you. Then we'll open up the Zoom room for some questions. Go ahead, AJ.
Yeah, first one's for Wally. Well, the Atlantic League, as an MLB partner league, has been a laboratory. Some of the changes are now being implemented in MLB this year, most notably the pitch clock and the larger bases. Based on what you saw last year in the Atlantic League, what you've seen in major league games this year, is there anything that surprises you about how the new rules have played out?
I think the pitch clock has surprised me. The larger bases is 100% for safety. But the pitch clock, I went to the Met game on Saturday, and the game just seems to go so fast. Baseball, to me, was always a game with no clock. So they've tried to change those things, and, the antics that a player has, it's hitting or whatever it might be, they all get one timeout or whatever you call it when they raise their hand. But I think the fans like that. I've only been back in New York for the last week, and I talked to the people out here on Long Island, and a lot of people are frustrated with the pitch clock because it's New York, and they say, hey, it takes me longer to go into Citi Field and get home than the game lasts. So, it's a change. It's something that I think we all will understand when it comes to time, but the players enjoy that the game is faster, but it's what it is. We've done a lot of things in the Atlantic League because we're associated with MLB, to try to find out, for safety, things like that. I don't agree with everything, but I think a lot of the things that MLB has done is good for baseball.
One of the things to follow up that was tried, I think, 2 years ago in the Atlantic League that's gone by the wayside is the robo-ump, throwing balls and strikes. Do you see that coming back?
Oh, it's going to happen. I really believe it's going to happen. It takes the pressure off the umpires. We don't do it anymore, but I do believe, when you look at the percentages of the right calls from the robo umps, the percentages is basically quite a bit higher than the actual human being umpire. We'll have to see where it goes. I think I don't really care for it. I like the part of the game that you can have those discussions with umpires, but if there's a robo ump,
discussions.
There's no
Let's see Jazz. She doesn't argue with a robo ump.
Right.
What pisses me off is I can't get thrown out of as many games.
So Barry, there's something that happened in tonight's game about in the new rules that really had me asking you a question as a former catcher. So there was a point where Thomas Nido sort of called a timeout to go out to talk to Max Scherzer to avoid a pitch clock violation. So as a former catcher, how much responsibility does a catcher really have to avoid a pitch clock violation?
Well, that's somewhat new territory. I've been watching it here in my hometown. I'm ambassador for the AA club here in Biloxi. and it's the Brewers organization. So I've seen the pitch clock in action the last 2 years, and to me, and the guy on the mound tonight, Scherzer, is a perfect example of it. The guy that wants to find a way to get the edge or to tinker with it, instead of guys just getting the ball and then going ahead and pitching. You got to try to block that clock out of your mind and just play the game. Yeah, it is expedited. The game is moved along, but there was a time in baseball where you didn't need that. We didn't have a clock. But guys, the umpires kept the game going. They guys hustled in and out, in between the innings. You didn't have 3-minute TV timeouts for every inning. It was 2 minutes or 2.5 minutes. So there are a lot of reasons why the game lingered on, and obviously all the pitching changes. But the catcher's job, but yeah, he's going to be responsible for making sure that his pitcher keeps pace and keeps in the rhythm, and obviously that rhythm has been sped up quite a bit. But I think a 20-second pitch clock just across the board instead of the 15 with no one on and the 20, I think that would make it a lot easier and a lot smoother. Just make it one thing across the board, whether it's 18 or 20 or 22 seconds. I get it. People don't come to the game to hurry up to get home. They come to the game to enjoy themselves and to get away from the world and to get away from quote unquote life and enjoy the greatest game that's ever been played, baseball. And so I'm like Wally, there's some of the changes they've made I agree with, but there's some that hopefully can be adjusted, if you will, as we go forward.
Yeah, it's getting there. I like it. I mean, again, my age, I remember the games back as a kid, 2 hours, 40 minutes, 2 hours, 30 minutes. You didn't have the constant guys stepping out, adjusting their batting gloves and all that. So I kind of like it. I think they're going to find a sweet spot as the season goes on. I think they are going to tinker it. Maybe it'll be an 18-second total clock. We'll see. They're definitely going to do things to tinker with it. They're open to making changes, which is a good thing. It's not a hard and fast, like this is it. This is the way it's going to be. So, I think it's evolving. All right. This is the part of the show we love, AJ and I. We open it up to you guys because that's what this is also all about. If you use the raise hand function, and if you are, somewhat computer illiterate and just want to really raise your hand like Wally did, you can do that too. All right. So Ed, you're first. Go ahead.
Okay. Wally, my wife and I bought season tickets front row for the Ducks, and we look forward to you having some conversations
Nice
season with some of the umpires.
Oh, I will.
A lot of fantasy camp guys here on the site, and I know you guys were talking about Bob Murphy. Wondering if you guys have heard Dave Helfrich's impersonation of Bob Murphy, because it's incredible.
I think I have, but I'm not positive. I'm getting older, so I can't remember.
I have, and actually, you know what, Ed, I will dig it out. I think one of the first years in fantasy camp, I actually had him do a video, and I'll dig that out and I'll post it on the KINER'S Korner site. I will do that in the next day or two.
I can tell you that my brother-in-law is friends with his son, and I put them on the phone together, and it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
His son looks a lot like him. It was a little frightening when I saw him at opening day and I spoke to him. He was like, I told him, I said, it just brings a smile to my face just because you remember Murph just the second you see him. So it's interesting. All right, Jeff, you can unmute. Go ahead.
Thank you. And I'm a fantasy camper also, and I really enjoy this. Thank you for doing this. I have two questions, one for Barry and one for Wally. Barry, I noticed in tonight's game that one of your responsibilities as a catcher was calling the game. Now it seems like with the PitchCom, the pitchers are calling the game. How do you feel about that?
I'm not a fan of that. That's the beauty of that relationship between a pitcher and a catcher, that where the pitcher gains the trust or the catcher gains the trust of the pitcher to allow him to call the game and to take that part of it off of him so that he can concentrate on executing the pitch that you agreed on to call. And you know, it started at the lower levels. At every level of baseball, they call pitches, and I've never been in agreement with that, even to this day. Wherever I've managed or coached, or certainly as a player, no one ever called the pitches for me. I had a minor league pitching coach with the Mets named John Cumberland, who I've spoken of before, who was a tremendous pitching coach that didn't get near the credit he deserved for his work with Gooden and so many of the young Mets pitchers in the 80s. But he helped me really with pitch calling. So that's something that is an essential part of the game. And now, you know, everything is predicated on what comes out of that computer and what spits out. And they go with that. And, you know, it's the nature of the game today. And I'm not a fan of it. But it is what it is. And, you know, I don't know much we can do about it.
Yeah, I grew up in the watching baseball in the 70s and 80s, my formidable years, and Wally, you know, in those days, pitchers pitch complete games. Maybe you had one pitcher, relief pitcher. Now the norm is you know, 4 or 5 pitchers per game. Are these managers managing to pitch counts or inning limits, or I mean, I know there's a difference between an inning, between a stressful inning and a non-stressful inning, but it seems like 6 innings gone. I mean, how do you manage like? Do you manage like that now?
No, absolutely
Good to
not.
hear.
You know, I mean, you have stressful innings for a pitcher, which going to account for him having a shorter outing and things like that. But you know, all these new rule changes that we started, I think 3 years ago in this Atlantic League, is trying to get a starting pitcher to be able to increase his value or whatever, innings pitched, whatever it might be. I like knowing that a pitcher can go 7 innings. I like knowing that I can go to a setup guy and a closer. It's not fun when you're trying to pick a team, like, and I do it now today. I'm picking when I get my players, I'm looking for a 6th inning guy, a 7th inning guy, and then a setup guy and a closer. So, you know, the game has changed in the sense that, you know, they're limiting these innings, and I just see more guys getting hurt doing these things. You know, you don't have Max Scherzer, great pitcher, pitched a great game tonight. You know, everybody, I was reading stuff about him thinking, oh gosh, he's got to face Soto and he's got to face all these guys. And you know what? He put a lot of people's fingers in their mouths to shut him up. But great pitcher. He's an old school type of guy. Those are the type of guys that I look for. I think baseball should look for. I don't know that they do. I think they will again. I think this game is going to go back to what it was like old school. I don't know if it'll be in my lifetime, but there's a feel for the game that it's not all about analytics. You have to have a feel for this game. And you know what? I love analytics. I believe in all of them. Not all of them. The ones that I think that'll help me win a game. But, you know, when you have these pitchers of that type of caliber, it's their game. They're going to let you know. And that's why there's a feel for the game that a lot of people have lost control of, that you have to have that feel.
Yeah,
You know,
Jeff mentioned something, and it triggered something to me when you're talking about the 6 innings in this, the new term, which I don't get. Maybe you guys can explain to me. The up downs. Come on, like, what is that about?
Up and downs is what you do to get a pitcher ready in spring training. Has nothing to do with the season. It's okay. This guy's got to get 4 ups, 4 downs. And in spring training, they may only pitch 2 innings the first time they go out, but they'll go in the bullpen and they'll sit down and they'll throw their 15 pitches or 20 pitches, and they'll sit down and they'll go throw their 15 or 20 pitches. so they get their ups and downs, because the legs are the first thing that goes, especially on a pitcher. So they need those ups and downs, and it's part of baseball.
You know, what I see in this, Wally and Barry, and tell me if I'm wrong, a lot of this, part of it is the numbers, the analytics, but it's all because of money. I mean, teams have so much money invested in each and every one of these players that they're basically assets and not people, and they're trying to protect the investment. Do you see a lot of that happening? Really, it's money that calls these shots, as opposed to what you would say, letting a pitcher say, "I got another inning in me," or I'm done.
100%. Buster Posey rule, Ruben Tejada rule with when Utley took him out. It's 100% about the money.
Yeah, no doubt about it that, they're protecting their commodities, as you said, their investments. They are assets to the organization. They're not looked at as just young ball player that loves to play the game. They're owned by these ball clubs, and they're trying every way they can through analytics and diet. And I mean, I would love to see the calculations that they get with guys getting how much sleep they get and how much good nutrition they're getting these days compared to our era. I don't think it would register.
I would have rather eaten a steak, Barry, and had a couple of cocktails and go out and kick the other team's ass tomorrow.
Wow, what a shock. All right, so we got a few minutes left. Let's get to the Zoom room again. If you have a question, use the raise hand function. Steve, go ahead. You got to unmute, Steve.
Sorry about that.
Sorry.
Very good to see you again. Wally, I'm also a fantasy camper, and I hope to see you come back. Actually,
I'll be there next year.
Will you? Awesome.
They told me that. So yeah, yes, both weeks next week. Next year.
Awesome.
That's going to cost me money now.
and funny aside, you were talking about nutrition, and it immediately made me think of Keith in the dugout with a cigarette in one hand and a beer in another. So, but my question actually goes back to Scherzer and what you were commenting on, Wally, and you too, Barry, from what you observed tonight. Gary, Keith, and Ron were sort of mentioning his velocity, that, at one point it was in the upper 90s, and then all of a sudden later on they were seeing in the lower 90s. And do you see that as a cause for concern?
Absolutely not. You know what? Scherzer is a magician, in my opinion. Kind of. That might be the wrong word to pitching. And so you take a little off, you put a little on, you add and subtract, and he knows how to do that. I think that's why he's been a great pitcher his whole career.
Well, that's what pitching is controlling the tempo and affecting the hitter's timing. And so the guys that can vary their speeds on their fastballs. I remember as a young player, Jim Palmer was talked about a lot. He would throw what he called just a BP fastball. And when you think about it, it's like, that's crazy. You're just throwing it, but when he's throwing one, quote unquote, 95 miles an hour and then throws 187, 88, it's changing the velocity, it's changing the timing that the hitter has to adjust to. So that's the art of pitching. And Scherzer obviously is a Hall of Fame pitcher, and he's first and foremost a pitcher.
Absolutely. All right, Jake, we'll end the Zoom room questions with you. Go ahead, unmute.
Thank you.
Oh, there we go. Okay, there you go.
Thank you. First of all, Wally, when you mentioned all the people that you were involved with in the minor leagues, the fact that you didn't mention the only announcer who ever had you wear a headset from the stands, I'm a little disappointed. From our the days in Tri-City after you got ejected, but that's another story. But I'm curious, both of you, the players you mentioned today, some of them seem to have a concern about their stats or a concern about how they look, everything that's off the field, etc. But a key thing I think too, and I wonder what you think about, you guys, sometimes you fought your teammates, sometimes you fought other teams. Because of all the money, are players too friendly with opponents these days?
Yes. Yes, they are. I think they are too friendly. It's like, you know what? I always said this, I'm going back before I was a professional athlete. And I played on a semi-pro team when I was 16 years old, and my brother was 5 years older. So he was, 21? And if I had to take him out at second base or whatever, I was going to do that. So it is a more friendly game. I don't really like it. I play the game for one reason, and that's to win, no matter who's on the other side.
Yeah, the camaraderie or the overzealous ways that they hug on each other and all before the games. I mean, that would never happen in our day. Yeah, there are some guys from one team that like the guys from the other team, but that was to be done after the game, out at the bar or whatever the case may be. I mean, they're used to find guys for
Fraternizing.
fraternizing. Yeah, I mean, it used to be really frowned upon, and now it's glorified. I mean, these guys are all hugged up, and they're all sharing stock tips and talking about their money and all the things that they get these days, the benefits they have. I mean, it's a different world in Major League Baseball now than eras gone by, and every era that it evolves to a certain degree. But I'm like Wally. I think it's going to come back some, and I think it already has. Some of the strikeouts and home runs are nothing. Those three outcomes or whatever, you see when it gets postseason time or close to it, these guys start playing real baseball again. And I think
who was the guy, Barry, who was the guy that hit the home run for the Marlins on Saturday? They were losing 3-0. And he had all those antics.
Yes,
Chisholm.
Chisholm. It was Chisholm.
What a piece of shit. If he did that in our day, he would have got ear hold. They're losing. He hits a home run, makes it 3-1. Oh, really? You're really good, buddy. Just so you know, you're really good, but your team is losing, bud. So, you know what? Chaz Chisholm is.
Don't hold back, Wally.
No, I'm not going to hold back because this guy would have. I wish Doc Gooden was pitching that game and he hit that home run, because Doc would have hit him in the head and knocked his helmet all the way back into the screen. But this is certain guys, and he's one. What a joke.
Wally, what about
disgrace to baseball?
What about the hats and the chains after the home run? They go into the dugout, and what is that?
I have no idea. It's like, come on. I don't even like the idea that everybody has their own touch, push, and shove, whatever you want to call it, when they hit a home run. Come on. Hit a home run. Go, you know what? If the stands want it and they step up and they're applauding and giving you a standing ovation, you go out and tip your hat. That's baseball. But some of this stuff, the chest bumps, I wish I was 6'5" and I was a pitcher. That's what I wish in my second coming.
These choreographed dances and all that stuff, I agree. It's totally out of hand. You guys have been really kind with your time tonight, so I don't want to keep you much longer. I just have to throw this out there because I'm surprised he doesn't have a minor league deal anywhere. And since it seems like the Ducks are, compiling a whole bunch of ex-Mets, anyone reached out to Matt Harvey by any chance?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, any shot?
Time will tell.
All right. There might be some Matt Harvey days in the future. Then we'll see.
I'm
That'd be
saving him for game one against Barry Lyons.
Then the
Guys.
real number 33 will have to show up then.
Oh,
I hear
there
you.
go.
I hear you. Well, can you catch him if you're the manager?
No,
No,
those days.
the real number 33. I thought you were referring to Darren Ruff, but he did sign a minor league contract.
No,
somewhere.
he did. I was trying to get him too.
Oh no, I'm glad you didn't.
Hey,
all right,
Mets gave
guys.
four
I know.
players up for that guy.
Yep. How about that game the other day when JD and Wilmer and
Right.
and Conforto, and who
Conforto,
else?
yeah,
Yeah,
I've seen it. I've seen it.
Yeah,
Right.
they all hit home runs. It's like all your guys.
That's West.
Exactly.
They're
Yeah,
good
that's
players.
all Wally's
All
got.
right, guys.
Yep. All right, guys. Good night, Wally. I'll see you on the 22nd, and Barry, I'll see you when you're in Staten Island, guys. Keep a look on the Facebook page. We'll let you know who's going to be on next week. It's all about you guys too, asking great questions in the room. We appreciate it, and we hope to grow this, get the word out. I know a lot of people just watch it on Facebook. I don't get it. You have the opportunity to ask these questions, but it is what it is. We hope to grow slowly, but keep on getting those numbers up. And I will find that Dave Helfrich, Bob Murphy impersonation, and I'll try to post it probably tomorrow morning.
We need it.
sometime.
That'll be
You
fun.
got it.
Great
All right,
time, Mark. Thank you.
You got it, Wally. I'll
Thanks,
see you
Mark.
soon, man.
Thanks,
All right,
guys.
good night.
All
Good
right,
night, guys.
yes, sir.
Have a great
Thanks,
night.
guys.
Let's go, Mets, guys.